This vessel contains my daughter, Kara Zor-El, from the now-dead planet Krypton. Treat her as you would your own child. She will prove a treasure for your world.
Well, hello, beautiful. Come on, sweetheart. Ah! Enough.
When it's an origin story, it's the first time that that character is in that universe. She doesn't know what's going on. Like, all she remembers is where she came from.
It's an origin story for the characters that are in the story as well. They're learning the truth about her.
Her DNA is definitely not human.
Her name is Kara Zor-El from Krypton. She's my cousin.
Bring me the girl who fell out of the sky. The one they call Kara.
Superman's gone up against Darkseid a number of times, so it's essentially been this extended draw.
Time to die, Man of Steel.
Supergirl in the comic books has had a long and circuitous history with a number of different backstories.
For one reason or another, they decided, hey, Superman would be better if he really were the only Kryptonian, so let's kill off all the other Kryptonians, including Supergirl, so Supergirl died.
She sacrifices herself during Crisis on Infinite Earths, and there's a very famous cover of Superman holding Kara's dead body. So she's been dead in the DC universe ever since then.
We're ultimately the audience that we make these movies for. We think, what do we want to see? If we were a fan out there, what would we want to see animated? Pretty unanimously, all of us kind of gravitated towards the Supergirl story.
Very simple story. Superman's cousin was put in a rocket ship when she was 15, 16 years old. That ship got somehow derailed on its way here. And so he was a grown man by the time she landed as a teenager. That's the story. They're cousins. You don't really need to know anything more than that.
Your cousin just torched $50,000 worth of custom hardware.
Send me the bill.
On a reporter's salary? Right.
Superman and Batman are two very different characters, just down to just about everything that there is about them.
Batman's the non-superpowered skulker in the shadows, and Superman is the big, superpowered demigod.
In this case, it's not just Superman versus Apocalypse, it's Superman versus Apocalypse with Supergirl caught in the middle. And that's a very emotional situation for Superman.
We have a hard time sometimes coming up with Superman stories. It's like, well, here's this guy, he's got all these powers, and what's the threat? And it's like, wow, that's too easy for Superman.
Under my guidance, you could have become the most powerful being in the universe. Your life here will be nothing in comparison.
But Darkseid himself is one of the main, bad guys of the DC universe.
That name alone kind of gets people excited because they know there's going to be a challenge.
And he's like this evil god.
One of the really compelling parts of the actual graphic novel is that Jeff Loeb uses a lot of internal monologue to explain what's going on with his characters, but also to juxtapose the attitudes between Superman and Batman. What you want to do is figure out how to do that through action and through emotion and through character.
It gives us as directors and actors an insight into what these guys have thought in the past, what their opinions are, how they deal with what's happening immediately.
What's interesting about the first part of the film is that, here's Supergirl, this lost young woman on this foreign planet, and Superman's trying to help her along, and he's bonding with her in a brotherly love kind of way.
I'm going to love being an Earth girl.
Batman's saying, I don't trust her, I don't know, there's something fishy about all this.
Why don't you cut her some slack?
We don't know anything about her. She claims to have no memory of anything prior to splashing down in Gotham Bay.
When you look at Clark, who's an orphan, and you look at Bruce, who's an orphan, for them to suddenly be seen as father figures is challenging for them.
Kara's like, caught between all these grown-ups who are like arguing about what's best for her and what's, what her place in the world is and whether she's, she's to be trusted or not.
Why don't you trust me?
Kal-El has enemies.
You think I would hurt my own cousin?
Perhaps not intentionally.
She kind of has to adapt to this new world and this new life and these new powers that she never had on her native planet.
She's not really crazy about the fact that laser beams shoot out of her eyes.
You don't get to see the fun of that with Superman because he's already become that person by the time you see him.
These powers, they terrify me. I mean, the responsibility. I don't want to be anybody's champion.
So she has quite an interesting journey throughout this story. It's actually pretty involving, I think.
She's put in tremendous jeopardy in this piece, which is always what's dramatically interesting, is putting somebody that you care about in jeopardy.
It's just as well we keep Kara in the dark.
So we just keep waiting.
This is the safest place for her, Clark. I've had my army standing by.
Wonder Woman is a very interesting character in this movie because, you know, she's a warrior. She's an Amazon princess. And I think the idea of an impressionable young woman being essentially used as a pawn between Superman and Apocalypse is not one that appeals to her.
Go! It's actually Wonder Woman who's taken her to train her, to protect her, to make sure she's strong enough to fight against anything that comes her way.
She needs to have a strong female to bring the feminine perspective into this situation.
Whenever we get the chance to do something that can, you know, benefit women or just be any sort of role model to women, it's a good thing.
Wonder Woman's compassion for Kara in this piece is very clearly depicted, I think. And that's important, to let little girls know that you can be strong and still be emotional and have feelings and sympathy.
If Superman is the most powerful character in the DC universe, that to have a female version of him that wasn't Wonder Woman, that could do all of the things that he did, that we needed someone who could actually take advantage of that. And while you could have the fun of Lex Luthor or the fun of the Joker, I mean, the DC universe is populated by just great rogues galleries. But if you're going to tell a story about that level of power, you need someone who can be able to actually manipulate that situation. And it just was Darkseid.
I could destroy you with a single blast of my Omega beams.
Darkseid has come to the realization that he probably can't overwhelm Superman by brute force. The opportunity that Kara presents is an opportunity to take Superman down psychologically.
That's really kind of what Darkseid is banking on, is just, I'm going to hurt you, but not directly. I'm going to hurt this girl, and that's going to hurt you even worse than if I just punched you in the face.
When it came time to do Apocalypse, that's when Michael Turner had come onto the book.
The stuff about Michael Turner that is very, I think, iconic, or the stuff that makes it recognizable, is, you know, his female faces, particularly like the very dark eyelashes around the big eyes. B, the elongated waists, like a lot of the women are very kind of thin and slender and tall. And C, he's always had this way of kind of just drawing really wavy, almost stringy hair.
And it only made sense to try and apply Michael's style of artwork to the storytelling.
It's just ripped out of the pages of the comic and, you know, onto the screen as closely as we could make it.
I'm not saying there aren't loose ends.
Having no control over her power is more than a loose end. She's dangerous.
Which is why she's in quarantine, until she can gain control.
Since we'd already set the precedent with Public Enemies of utilizing our animated Batman and Superman, Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly, it totally made sense to stay with that for this story.
Darkseid is a huge villain, epic-sized villain. So it gives a lot of dynamic for Batman and Superman to work off of. And it makes it a very dramatic story.
He's not saving the planet. He's not saving Metropolis. You know, he's not saving Lois. He's saving a blood relative. So it's that kind of, you know, deeply personal feeling. And I hope that comes through. But I do enjoy that in the script.
She's free to leave, if that is what she desires. Darkseid's new to me because he wasn't one of those DC characters that I read about when I was a kid. Story-wise, I learned about this rivalry between Darkseid and Superman, you know, and the repeated attempts in the past, and, you know, what a sort of intergalactic despot he is, you know.
We needed him to be smart, tough, evil incarnate. and manipulative.
Andrea is very, fluent in all of these characters, so she really understands what's motivating them. It just becomes a joyful exercise, so I liked it a lot.
There was very little I had to say to him to get a performance that was completely believable.
Why can't you just leave me alone? You'll never understand what it's like to be me.
As an actress, it's very gratifying to have a character that has such a strong arc so that you can do so many different things in one script with one character.
There needed to be an innocence, but also have awesome physical strength. And then there's also this period of time that takes place where she is pure evil.
The gift of the animation director and the gift of the voice director is that if the emotion of the story can come across with movement, that's pretty huge. Here we told this story, and what I liked about it was that it was a journey of discovery.
I mean, we keep trying to up the bar on these movies, and the teams around them, the production teams and the creative teams, really rise up to the challenge every time.
It's a quality piece. Everybody who works on it puts their guts into it.
It's a phenomenal voice cast. It looks great. It's based on a best-selling story.
I think the fans are in for a lot of really good action, which they've come to expect from our movies.
It's all exciting and amped up to 11.
We are now going to create the definitive Supergirl for the next generation.
We're all here because each of us, in our own way, fights with the hope of a better tomorrow. What better role for anyone to aspire to than hero? To that end, I am pleased to introduce my cousin, Kara Zor-El, or as the world will come to know her, Supergirl.